the center of Glasgow was kind of recovered to something what looks very good and clean. And around the center, kind of the second and the third layer of the city, there were placed a lot of black wooden fences, yeah, to make it invisible to see the ugly buildings in the back, yeah. And this black, this kind of how to say this blackboard stuff. So I started to draw on that. It seems like that the wooden fences were inviting me to draw on it. They were black. They were made black with tar.
So it's like black. It's like hoarding, but tarred over with black.
Yeah. And sometimes with wooden, you have this kind of rhythm of wooden lats. Yeah. And to be honest, at that moment, I did do that because I loved it to do it. I loved to draw outside, and I saw that it changed the space a little. And the nice thing is that on the end today I went home, and then the next day I came back. But more and more it happened that the fence was, for example, when I made a big drawing, and then I was away for 2 weeks. I was not there on the location, and then I went back after these 2 weeks, and the whole wall was gone. Yeah. So the third circle around the city center was changing in a very fast way. And it happened a few times that I started to draw on walls, and that within a month they were gone. And that became interesting for me. Interesting for me that how is this kind of city changing? That was one thing what happened, and the other thing was that during the drawings, people came along and they asked me, what are you doing? Are you a city planner, or are you an architect, or are you from the city hall, or what is the plan? And then I always said, well, I'm an artist, I'm making this drawing. And at one time, I met a person who asked more questions. And then I said, well, if you're really interested in this, it seems like you're really interested in this, maybe I could continue on your house. Are you living in this area? And he said, no, you're not on my house. But from that time on, I made it as a kind of a goal to ask people, not if I could draw on their specific house, but if they know someone who allows me to draw on this house. But in Glasgow, it's impossible to stay in the street without talking. But that's here as well. People start talking to you. Comparing to the Netherlands, it's not that people are always talking to you. And well, I'm making this kind of drawing since 17 years, and humor is a very important thing. Without humor, I think you can't draw on the street, because people are asking. They want to get the clue. Why are you there? And if they can make a laugh about it, that means that they are not. That if you give them something that they could take it serious, but not that serious. That's the joke. That helps. So, for example, they have a building, and the building does not have a real corner, because the building is like this, and then you have a 45 degrees corner, kind of a missing corner. Yeah, and I draw on the pavement, 9 by 9 meters, a corner. I spent the whole day with drawing this corner, 90 degrees corner with chalk on the pavement, and explaining to the people that that's the missing corner. And that's funny, they understand, because the building does not have a corner, so he's actually kind of repairing the building. Well, in Glasgow it started actually that I made my first drawing on a house, on a house where someone is living in, and then I made the drawing bigger than the house is. So the drawing is kind of knocking on the neighbor's door, if it could continue there. Yeah, but sometimes the neighbor agrees, so he said, yes, you can do it, but mostly not. Yeah. So I go to the third neighbor, explaining that I'm making a long drawing and that the rain will wash it away because it's chalk, and if he could let me go on his house as well. So after months of drawing in the street, you have a few houses with a drawing, a big drawing really from the top to the bottom, And most of the houses do not have a drawing. Yeah? So you have a lot of kind of breaks in between. But when you start to draw on a house, you have always the windows. Yeah. So the drawing stops at the window. But now and then people invite me to drink a cup of tea inside the house. And then that's actually the goal of the whole work, to continue
to get in
the drawing inside. The thing with the documentary was that I saw it as kind of when you... I felt comfortable before I took the camera. Yeah, the camera. I see the camera as like you start hunting. You have to make the right frame and everything. And the whole time I had the feeling that the interesting stuff is happening in my back. It's not in the frame of the camera. So I saw the documentary. For me, it's a medium of the missing chances. I missed a lot of chances there, and I found out a way to be in a neighborhood without the camera and with a piece of chalk. What makes that you do not have a focus goal, but it's much wider. It's around you. And the thing is, with the documentary, you are documenting what's going on there, and then you leave, and you never come back. And they don't see the documentary. There are ways to do that as well, to come back and to show the people the documentaries. But the difference between the drawings and the documentaries is that with the drawings I have to be back to continue the drawing, and you let something behind when you leave. So it's much more in their lives. So what Marie-Louise said, that I became a citizen, but I see it that the people, they become citizens of my drawings, yeah. But they're kind of, sometimes they say it seems like that you are living in the neighborhood because you spend so much time in the neighborhood. But I see it that they are living in my drawings, that they became the people in my drawings. It's kind of a trait, it's a funny trait, and that's what I say to them as well. You are living in my drawings now. Yeah, well, there are people who are really documentary makers. Like, you have people who are a real postman, but I'm not. It doesn't work for me. That's the thing. So I like to see documentaries from the real documentary makers, people who invest everything in their life in making a documentary. But for me, it was at that time much more an adventure to I think I was 22, 24 years old, and there was a way to find out what could be my goal in life. And so it was not a very, how to say this, the drawings I'm making, that was never a gift by nature. It was something I developed in a few steps. Even when I started to draw in Glasgow, I was not conscious in the first 3 years that it opened this interesting social field. I just liked the drawings. I liked the white on the black fence, yeah. And then things were always going on, what made it problematic to continue. People were stopping me, and then the city hall, and then the police came. There was always a dynamic, and sometimes the dynamic was good for me, and often it was not good. So gangs, young people, like in the gang structure, they were walking there. They said nothing. It doesn't feel comfortable. But when you continue, even with their eyes in your back, and when you succeed, it feels as something. Wow, it's yeah. Well, I start very informal, so just on the pavement, on the street, on the surface of the street, on the asphalt. So the asphalt belongs to everybody and nobody. So they can't stop you, or they are not supporting you as well. So you have to you get kind of, you're busy there, and I can imagine that it looks strange in their eyes to see an adult spending hours making a drawing on the street, and then they start asking me things, and the drawings are very precise, but in my way of being there, I'm not that precise. I'm kind of it's.
But you never ask for permission, like it's
I
never an official.
no, not
permission.
beforehand. Not beforehand.
Okay.
No, what the people when I start asking things like, do you know someone, or maybe could I make in the past I made a drawing on a house? Could I maybe do something on your house? What do you think about that? Or I'm collaborating with the school and we'll make a speurtocht. Do you say that?
I don't know.
It's a kind of. Yeah, it's a Dutch word. When you.
What is it?
Speurtocht.
Yeah.
A month, but it's actually not true. So I have to go to the school to ask if they are willing to.
Do a treasure hunt
So it's the opposite. I was working in the Dorley Park over there, and then an old lady, she passed by and she stopped, and she said to me, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm making a drawing. Do you have permission?" I said, "Who to ask permission?" She said, you don't have permission. What's your name?" And I said, "Well," and I wrote my name on the wall, Bart. And she said, "You're not allowed to do that." And
Where was it?
It was, you have a rough wall on the bottom of the green hill, not far from the riverside.
Yeah.
And then I asked her, "May I ask you what's your name?" And she said, "My name is Agatha." Okay, so I wrote Agatha on the wall. And then she said, no, they all know there is a connection between the two names. That's how people come for participants, yeah.
It wasn't on the house, it was on the public wall.
And so so the next day I saw her again and we talked about it, and then she said, "Well, you're lucky I do not have a husband." He doesn't like that. So
Okay.
and there was one drunk man. There's
I
one
think-
alcoholic there. There are many alcoholics actually, but one is a very strong character, and he's walking. He has this black jacket on and walking with this hat, you know. And he walks, and then I made a huge drawing on the street, on the surface. And he walked, and he saw the drawing, and he looked at the drawing, and I think he didn't believe in his eyes. I was staying there. So, and then at one point, he looked up to the sky.
Aliens.
And they commissioned Bart to come and do a project, so that was a nice,
Yeah.
Juxtaposition
Yeah.
of it. Yeah.
That's weird.
Very weird.
But this is
Yeah.
weird, and this is the. Then it comes to a point, because then you really can do something, because it's funny that the kids are not allowed, and it's material from the children. That's how I see it. Chalk doesn't belong to adults; it belongs to children, and they are not allowed.
And
So
why? Why were they not allowed?
because that's actually they are not. It's a director from the housing association. She thinks that when you start with chalk, you end up with graffiti, and from graffiti you get drugs, and from drugs you get and so on and so on and so on.
Pretty good.
Yeah, but the funny thing was that I saw this kind of stop to chalk as something amazing, stupid, but the same way amazing, humoristic, very, really as so stupid. So I went to her and I act to be extremely angry, both extremely angry. And then she said a whole line of stupid things, and she was totally against me. And I wrote all these things down. I had a column in the newspaper from that city. So I wrote down all the information she gave to me on why it's forbidden and why chalk is bad. And then she contacted the newspaper that she stopped them to print my columns. So she was really interfering in the whole project. And I have to remove all the drawings I made in the neighborhood. And I did. I removed all the drawings because you know Willem de Koning, the painter Willem de Koning. So Robert Rauschenberg, he bought in that time a Willem de Koning drawing, and he removed it. He erased the drawing, and the drawing became famous. So the last column in the newspaper, I wrote this story, and that was the reason for me to wash away the drawings in the neighborhood. So
Should have gotten some artist colleague to do it.
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
tradition of the incident.
But mostly when you start drawing somewhere, for kids it seems logical to help, to draw out as well. So you get the small drawings like a little house, a little tree, and then you get the more sexual drawings from the adolescents, and yeah, you can see their age, they go higher up and much more provocation. And it's nice that these, sometimes you get this music things and noten. Yeah, between my lines. A Christmas song, for example. And but the citizens, the parents, they don't accept that because the artist is allowed to do that, but not the children. So with the children, you get another level of social unwritten laws in the street. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Yeah. When I was a boy, I was 9 years old, I have two younger sisters. I have to walk from my home house to the primary school. And it's actually, primary school was 2 kilometers, to make it 2 miles walking. But it was that far because you have to follow a small, it's not really a river, beekje, a stream, a small stream. It would be much easier to build a bridge over the stream. So then it's only 900 meters to walk to the school. So I wrote a letter to the mayor of the city with this idea that I would, to build a small bridge there for my sisters and me to walk to school. And he wrote a letter back that when the weather becomes good, that they're going to build a bridge there. So this bridge is still there. It's my first artistic intervention and the only one that's still existing. I spent altogether 3 years in this neighborhood. It was an isolated neighborhood. On both sides of the street there was railway tracks. There are railway tracks, so it's difficult to reach the street. And in the middle of the street there was a beautiful former railway house, and an old man is living in the house. His name is Louis. And I decided to try to make as many drawings as possible in the street, except on the railway house, because it has this very unique, authentic character. But I was doubting about it, because it's the most beautiful house, and the man who's living there, he seems like more living autarkies. Yeah, he has his vegetables in between the rail tracks and all illegal. It's interesting what he's doing, and he was collecting wood, walking through the streets collecting wood with needles, and in the night he put out the needles to have wood for the winter when it's cold to make fire in the house. So he has his life, and one day I went to him and I said very not indirect but very direct. Yeah, I saw you many times. I'm making drawings in the street. You saw the drawings, and yeah, it would be great to make a drawing on your house as well. And he didn't react. He looked at me and he smiled, and he continued what he was doing there. I said, well, and I tried again, and then I found out that he was deaf because of the trains. Yeah. So in the end, I shouted to him, "Can I draw on your house?" Yeah, it was really brutal. And he said, that's okay, you can draw on the house. A few lines, that's fine. So I started to draw on the house, but I spent there 4 days, and the house is kind of brown-black color, and the house became more white because of the lines. And then he came to see what I was doing, and he didn't agree. He started to argument, he didn't like it. He said, as you promised me to make a few lines, and now it's kind of a white block of lines. So you are taking it over, so go away. So he sent me away. But he's living there with his daughter. His daughter said to me, Marina is her name, she said, come back tomorrow, I'm going to talk with Daddy about this. So the next day I went back, and then she explained to me that Daddy is paying 40 euros rent a month. That's really nothing, because he's a former railway worker and he has this reduction and he's living there since 40 years and so on and so on. So that the problem is that Louis thinks that I made the house visible. that the railway company, that they see the house and they are going to knock on the door to put up the rent. That was his fear. So Louis asked me, if they come, we have to tell the railway company the same story. And from that moment on we became kind of close, and he allowed me to draw inside the house as well. So I spent weeks in the house. And then the museum, and that's you're asking, the museum came along. The Museum of Ghent, they gave me the commission to work in that street or in that neighborhood. And they came along and they asked me, we will put one of your works in our collection. They have a huge art of Povera collection, and my work seems familiar to the art of Povera because it's temporary and so on and so on. And then I said, well, I answered yes, there's only one work I could bring to your collection, and that's this railway house. It's too expensive to buy, but I can write a letter to the railway company and explaining that they can't demolish the house anymore. I forgot to tell you one thing, that when Louis leaves the house, that the railway company is going to demolish the house. That's the agreement. That's the only agreement he has with railway company. He's paying 40 euros a month, and then on the end, he's the last one living there, and they knock it down. So I wrote a letter to the railway company that they can't knock it down anymore because there is an art piece on the house what belongs to the collection of the museum. So it's an official art piece.
Municipal.
Yeah.
It wasn't in chalk, it was in...
Only chalk, yeah.
Oh, it was in chalk.
Yeah, the funny thing is that the temporarity of chalk is holding a house, to making the house much more permanent. Yeah, that's kind of the other way around. And I tried to make a verbal agreement with the director of this railway company, because a verbal agreement has the same kind of binding than chalk. If you knock on someone's house asking permission to draw on the house or inside the house, it's about trust. It's more about trust than about chalk. And that's what I tried to do with the railway company as well. And they answered me that they are not, that they do not have the condition to sign a verbal agreement. They only do black and white or paper agreements. And I argued back to them that it's easier to have a verbal agreement because the official agreement, they are going to change it every year. So it's easier to change a verbal agreement. But they were not they never did. But I published one publication that's about this whole story, what happens in this Moscow district of Ghent, about I call it the permanent chalk drawing.
What is that? How do you make it permanent?
I did it because of the publication. So the publication, the text and the photographs, they are fixing the drawing. And the funny thing is that the drawing is still there, the house is still there as well, and it's a little sad, but Louis, he died 2 years ago, but they didn't demolish the house. It's about the drawing outside and the drawings inside. It's kind of that it's not permanent. It's important that it's not permanent. It's not changing the neighborhood forever. It's absolutely interfering for a short moment, and it's much more interfering in the mentality of the people there. So they are free to wash it away when they don't like it anymore. In the houses, when they draw inside the houses. I made a drawing on a big tower, a black tower, 36 meters high tower. And it's actually, I'm not talking about the drawing itself now, but in the opposite of the drawing there was a primary school. And because the kids were yelling the whole time when I draw on the tower, I went to the school when it was done. I went to all the classes to talk about it. From my perspective, it was explaining, but as well collecting their interpretations, what it could be, the drawing. And then there was one boy, and he said to me, he asked me, could you make a life out of it? How much do you earn? Yeah? Do you make money? And I said to him back, well, are you interested to buy one of my drawings? What's your pocket money? And he said, it's 5 euros a month. I said, well, that's exactly the price of the drawing of the tower. So if you give me the 5 euros, you're owning this drawing. And he said, I'm not stupid because the rain will wash it away. I'm not buying it. I don't do this. And the kids were kind of, yeah, of course he can't. It's only shortly there. And then the teacher, and she was a very good teacher, she said to me, okay, calm down. I'm going to buy the drawing. I give you the €5, and then it belongs to the whole school, or the whole class, or maybe the whole school. That's nice. And I said, no, you have to pay a month's salary because you are not a child. Yeah?
Yes.
You're not a child. So the kids were, they choose for the teacher, yeah? So they said, yeah, she has to pay €5 as well because she's on the same level like we are. And then at one moment the boy said, I will buy it for with my pocket money for €5 because that's a month's salary. Yeah, and then it's a discussion about the value of what art should be. Yeah. And she said, well, a rabbit killer visited me. Who's that? Not a rabbit killer, but a rabbit.
With the rabbit.
Yeah, and then it became kind of, and that's nice because people are asking, who's the rabbit killer? Yeah, the rabbit killer, you know that guy who's making the stroke lines here and there. That's a rabbit killer. And you start to laugh, and it feels like lifting, or what do you say, parasiting on this story. It has nothing to do with the drawing, and it became amazing important. Hitchhiking on this story.
That's a good expression.
To make it known by other people, because the best way, and that's the last thing I'm saying, the best way to work is that I'm not talking about it to the people, that the people talk themselves about it. Yeah?
Word of mouth.
That people are asking other people, why not your house? That's the best way. When I started with this, it was not a goal to make a life out of it. Yeah? So it grows in a way, and then new things came in the view of the drawings, and I started to talk, I started to write, and I continued the drawings, and at one point I thought, well, I can't do this the rest of my life, and another point I had to make these chalk drawings, and the other way I became a little proud to make a life out of chalk. It sounds so stupid. And all these things, it's kind of big. It's not a single line anymore. It's a whole field of
Practice.
things, and it's going in a way, and I think it's always in the middle of something. It does not have a goal. It's not clear when it exactly started.
Bart, thanks so much for being so generous.
Yeah, and thank you for being here. Thank you so much. And yeah, another thing, I really love to be in Sligo. So this is my favorite project.
Wow.
Yeah.